Under Donald Trump, the EPA is not what it used to be, and it is coming for your land, it's coming for your air, it's coming for your water, and in just a 24-hour period, multiple different ways that the EPA is trying to destroy the environment that you rely on for life. So let's talk about two pieces of news. This just happened in the past day. Director of the US Geological Survey, James Riley, a White House appointed former oil geologist, ordered that scientific assessments for the potential impact of climate change only use computer-generated models that track that impact until 2040. Now, if you're not a scientist and if you're not trying to assess how much damage climate change is going to do, it might seem like going out a couple decades makes a lot of sense, but there's a reason that they're choosing to cap that at 2040 rather than going to the end of the century as these models have been doing of late. The idea is that the actual effects of climate change, the most negative ones, begin to ramp up after 2040. And so if you cap it there and say, we don't want to know what happens after that, then you can pretend that, hey, maybe things will be okay. We don't necessarily know how bad it's going to be. And previously, as I had pointed out, they usually go until the end of the century when the effects are far, far worse. And just recently, a few months ago, the US government put out a report talking about the incredible toll in terms of both money and American lives that will be lost by the end of the century due to out of control climate breakdown. They're not interested in having any more reports like that. And so by simply cutting off when you can analyze to, they're hoping to pretend to lull you into a false sense of security when it comes to the climate.
Okay, let's come up with a fun outlandish example. So let's say aliens planted a bomb in the middle of the earth that could make the whole planet explode, and the scientists found it. Oh, wonderful, they did a great job, right?
I heard about that on Alex Jones, actually.
Is that right? This is possible. And scientists say it is likely to go off somewhere between 2038 and 2052. And Trump says, let's stop studying that bomb after 2040. You'd say, that doesn't seem like a good idea. You might catch it in 2038 and 2039, but if you stop studying it, maybe it's going to go off in the bigger portion, right? And of course here, climate change is not like a bomb. It is more gradual, but it is happening all throughout. We're in the middle of it now. It's not like it's going to start at a later date, but it does get progressively worse and worse. And hence, capping it at 2040 is obviously done to make sure that you don't know the full science and the full facts. And so I had a guest on the conversation a little while ago, and I asked him, he's a scientist, if there's any Republican scientists left. And I don't know, that's a genuine question. I don't know how you could be a scientist and still remain a Republican. It's gotta be deeply embarrassing. The whole party's against what you do. And so, okay, so are you proud if you're a Republican scientist? Like, that's right, we should stop doing science after 2040. Don't let anybody know what's gonna happen. If that's your kind of science, maybe you should find another field.
Yeah, and it's also amazing that, I mean, this is the party and the individual, Donald Trump, who says, I alone can protect you. I'm the only one that can save you from these threats. And yet, when it comes to gun violence, they don't let us actually track how many deaths there actually are. Now they want to make it so that we blind ourselves to what is going to happen with our climate. How are you going to protect us from something that you won't even look at? You won't even acknowledge what's going on, and you're supposed to be our defender, and yet they maintain that reputation. But there was one other piece of news in the environment. This is perhaps less important on a global scale, but still pretty shocking when you see the details. The EPA released a notice on Thursday of last week requesting public comment on its proposal to raise the maximum level allowed for a chemical used in literal rocket fuel, which is linked to thyroid problems, to 56 micrograms per liter. This is 3 times higher than what the EPA previously recommended as a safe level for drinking water. Now, what is important about that is not just that they are saying you can have 3 times as much of it, but that before it was just a recommendation. It was not any sort of like legal requirement. But this actually will be establishing a legal requirement, just 3 times higher. And if that sounds bad, it's actually worse because the EPA is seeking comment on 3 other alternate options, setting the level to 18 micrograms per liter, to 90 micrograms per liter, or simply abolishing the rule regulating it at all. So you can just pour as much rocket fuel as you want into our water, or a chemical used in it.
Yeah, globally it might be less of a problem because Botswana doesn't have to drink our water, but locally for your kids and for your family, it could be a very, very significant problem. So I want to give you context. So the standard under Obama was 15 micrograms per liter of rocket fuel is allowed in water because that is small enough, the thought was, and as John just told you, is a suggestion, it was not codified yet as a law, 15, okay, keep that number in mind. Now, a lot of people think that that's actually too high. In fact, there are laws on the books in California that it should be 6. In Massachusetts, it's only 2. So that's 2 micrograms per liter that is allowed. So already the Obama standard was way above California and as you can tell, 7.5 times the size of Massachusetts legally allowed limit. Now, the proposal here is for 56, the Trump people are saying, but it could go all the way up to 90 or unlimited. So they're like, hey, be cool. We're cranking it up to 56. That's nearly 4 times the Obama level. That's, let's see if I can do this math right, 28 times the Massachusetts level, right? 28 times the Massachusetts level. Or if you don't follow along, we'll make it twice as bad or infinitely bad. But that pretty much describes the Trump administration overall.
Yeah.
If you don't like how terrible we've made things, we can make it twice as bad or infinitely bad.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess at this point, there have been so many awesome campaign ads that have just been designed for the opposition, but they want your kids to drink more rocket fuel. Seems like a winner to me.
Yeah, unfortunately they're Democrats, so they're very unlikely to do those ads. Okay, so last thing on this. So what does rocket fuel do to folks? Well, it produces hormones, or it disrupts your thyroid's ability to produce hormones, I should say, needed for normal growth, and it can affect reproductive issues. So, ironically, you know those conspiracy theories that Alex Jones has about gay frogs and the feminization of society because of what's in the water, it turns out his boy Trump is the one that wants to do that in a way that could actually do it. Right, as opposed to nonsense conspiracy theories, this could actually affect the thyroid, the hormones, and all the other things that they talked about. And what do they do now? Or do they turn around and all those people who are doing those conspiracies? Oh my God, it turns out Trump's the lizard people, right? No, they're like, yeah, that's right, rocket fuel in the water. Let's make sure we screw around with our hormones. Yeah.
You seem a little bit like you've been drinking some rocket fuel. You're a little bit excited right now.
We are trying to prevent that. Yes. The folks who previously pretended to warn you about that are now totally hunky-dory because their dear leader has told you that it's a great idea for your kids to drink rocket fuel.
It's not.
On the go? Don't worry, we got you covered. You can still listen to TYT at our new podcast network. Find us on Apple Podcasts, the Google Play Store, or at tyt.com/podcast.